Hey, Logan.
Hey Miriam, how you doing?
Good. Awesome. So happy to be here. We're getting ready to do the second course of the Harvest at Home meal. What are we cooking today?
Well, we're whipping up a couple of delicious sides, and thankfully Nine Bean Rose has done most of the work for one of them. So we're going to be focusing on our bread course, just kind of elevating it just a little bit. And then we're going to actually create a side. We're doing some roasted potato wedges, which I think universally loved. And we're going to whip up an aioli sauce using turnips, which I think will probably be a first for pretty much everybody. So I'm super stoked to dive into this and show you how it's done.
Cool.
Okay, reset.
So just so folks are aware, we are doing things a little bit different this year for Harvest. We're doing Harvest at Home. So you are able to make the entire Harvest meal in your own home kitchen by pre-ordering your Harvest at Home farm box. I have mine back here. It's $100. It feeds 4 people, a full course meal. We've got salad. We've got our 2 sides, which is today's video, and then we'll make our entree a little bit later on. So we're working on that today. Pretty excited. All of that can be found at groundworkcenter.org/harvest. You can find the link to pre-order your farm box. You can find all of the recipes that we're using for the Harvest meal, as well as the shopping list. In case you're not a local to Traverse City or Northern Michigan, you can cook along with us. We've got a full shopping list and all the recipes, and we'll have a step-by-step guide on how to put this all together. And want to give a good shout out to our partners at Taste the Local Difference. You can go on their website, localdifference.org, and you can search all of the ingredients and find those ingredients local to where you are. So pretty excited about all of the different ways that folks can engage in Harvest at Home this year. So Logan, we're gonna start with our sides today. What do you have to say about that? What's our first go at it?
Yeah, so as always, we're just thinking ahead of time. So we just want to make sure that we're doing things in the right order, so everything comes out at the right time. So to start, we're gonna make sure we tackle both the potatoes and the turnips. Let's just go ahead and get in with the potatoes and get them in the oven real quick. So we have our beautiful Adirondack blue potatoes will be in the farm boxes if you're getting the farm boxes. So make sure you give them a good wash, a little scrub, but do keep the skins on them. No need to go ahead and take that extra step of peeling the potatoes. The skin actually, once they start to roast, actually will add a little bit of crunch as it crispies up in the oven.
Awesome. So at first glance, these look like just regular brown potatoes, but you kind of get a good look at it. And I haven't ever used blue potatoes before, so I'm pretty stoked to try these.
Yeah, so once you cut into them, you'll get a real experience as to why they're called blue potatoes. They're kind of more purple, if you will. But so different ways about going about cutting these, but I'm just going to go ahead and suggest a slice right down the middle lengthwise and right in half. I don't think any of these potatoes are so big that you have to worry about doing thirds. And we're looking for more of like this Texas size potato wedge, if you've ever done that. So once you have cut them in half, what we're looking to do is then wedge them. So kind of looking like for a cut like this.
Okay, all right.
You could probably get about 4 wedges per half, I would say. So you are looking at a pretty thick cut. So they'll be in the oven for a good little bit, but this will give us a nice, really satisfying potato wedge to bite into.
So if I've got kind of a more round potato, maybe like this one, I'm going down the center and then cutting it in half again, the opposite way, and then cutting each of those halves in half again. So it's like
exactly. So a half, and a half.
Okay.
And they don't have to be perfectly even. You know, some are going to be a little thicker, some are going to be a little thinner, and that just means, you know, you'll have some that end up a little crispier. So not a big deal. Don't stress over your knife cut so much that you're taking too much time.
These are just an absolutely stunning color. It's like the most vivid, bright violet. They're just really, really gorgeous. That is the beauty of local produce.
Yeah, get a close up of these beautiful potatoes. So if for any reason, you're running behind time, you can always cut them thinner. They'll take less time. And it's also one of those things where you can get away with boosting the oven temperature up a little bit.
Okay, I see what you're saying. So if I'm running behind, my guests are going to be here in an hour, so I've got other stuff I need to get done. I either need to call in reinforcements and get some extra hands in the kitchen, or you're saying that I can save some time by cutting these smaller.
Yep.
All right. So I'm nearly done cutting here. You're obviously a pro chef and faster than the home cook.
Yeah, I have a slight advantage, but all good. And then what we're looking for is a baking tray of some sort. If you have a baking sheet, like a nice stainless steel aluminum one, that works great. If you have like a glass Pyrex, that's okay as well. If you want to, you can go ahead and put parchment paper down if you're worried about, that cleanup afterwards. That's always a solid way to go. I'm just electing to go ahead and put them directly on. And you can go ahead and toss the potatoes right onto whatever baking vessel you have. So just go ahead and dump them on there. And then what we're going to do is going to put a little bit of olive oil. I would say a solid amount is like 2 to 3 tablespoons. I'm just saying to go ahead and drizzle mine on there. We're just looking to be able to get a nice little coat, make sure they don't stick too much to the pan, and also, the olive oil is going to help with giving it that nice crispy exterior that we're looking for. So sprinkle a little, drizzle a little bit of olive oil, and then a little bit of salt. So just go ahead, and if you have a good sea salt, that'll work. Pink Himalayan, whatever you got. Once again, just a little bit of salt over the top of them. I would say if you're looking for an exact measurement, maybe a teaspoon or so. And one of these things too, where if they come out and you're like, ooh, they could use a little bit more salt, you can sprinkle a little bit of salt after they come out of the oven as well. So okay. Always better to be on the safe side than to overdo it. And then as long as we have a clean pair of hands, just go ahead and toss the potatoes with the olive oil and salt right on the tray, and just making sure that we're getting the olive oil on coated all over each piece of potato that we have down. And that's all we're looking to do, and that's all we're going to do in terms of the seasoning. If for instance you like spice or paprika or something like that, I mean, you can always get creative and funky with your seasoning. We're just going to go ahead and keep it straightforward. Now, if you want to have the perfect potato wedges, what you're looking to do is to have every single wedge down on one of the 2 sides that exist. Okay. And I say that because if you want to be a perfectionist, about 20 minutes into the baking process, you could take them out and flip every single one over and make sure that it gets on the on the side that it wasn't on, and you would have perfect potato wedges. I don't know if anybody has that kind of time. I know I don't have that type of perfectionist tendencies, but we will halfway through the baking process just kind of make sure they're not sticking too much and move them around a little bit. But there is that option to get the perfect potato wedge, if you will. So, and then we'll go ahead and put them into the oven. Should have mentioned preheating the oven, but we didn't.
That's all right. Folks will at home will have their ovens preheated.
It is in the recipe card, so we didn't mess up too badly. Also, not a big deal. I mean, just turn the oven on now. It'll take an hour extra, 5 minutes or so. If you want to set a timer, if you're worried about forgetting it, set a timer for 20 minutes to check on them and flip them, etc. But otherwise, you'll also probably be in the kitchen and can kind of just keep an eye on the baking process. So
So I have finished chopping my potatoes here, and I am going to put them in my preheated oven. It's preheated to 425, right, Logan?
Yep, that's exactly right.
All right. What is our next order of operation?
All right, so we're going to get into our turnip aioli. If you're familiar with aioli sauce, it's lots of fatty garlic lemon. So that's what we're trying to mimic. We're not going to be using the typical dairy products, so we're using turnips as our base instead. Now, there's two different ways about studying about making this sauce. In our recipe card, we have it that you can just boil the turnips and onions together in the pot, which is a super time-efficient way to do things. The other option, if you have a little bit of time, you want to go the expert route, and you want to add a little bit more depth of flavor, what you can do is you can take the onion and actually saute it in like a little medium sauce pot with some olive oil first, and kind of like caramelize the onion. And then what you would do is then add the turnips. So it's another step if you're interested in doing it. So we can go ahead and take this first step of cutting up this onion that we have in our boxes.
All right, got my onions.
And we're going to be blending both the turnips and the onions in a blender at the end of the day. So you don't have to worry too much about your knife skills during this process. But what I would say is that you're just looking for like a medium dice on your onion. This is the time in which I would love to just start doing knife cutting tutorials, but I think we can skip that for now. But we're just looking for a medium dice on the onion. If it's smaller, that's good. If it's a little bigger, that's not a problem. And so again, if you're interested in kind of caramelizing your onions, it does take a little while. I'd say you're looking at a minimum of at least another 15, 20 minutes, just because the caramelization takes some time. So totally up to you. We'll just go ahead and do the expeditious route today. We'll still get plenty of that delicious onion flavor in our aioli. We're just saying to just go ahead for the straight boil. So we have our onions cut up, and now we want to move on to our turnips. In same principle, we're looking for a medium dice. As per the usual, you do not have to worry too much about peeling. If you got a spot in particular, you can always just shave it off. But I believe our turnips are going to look pretty darn beautiful when we get them. So when I say a medium dice, I know we're kind of capturing this on video, but I just want to make sure you're seeing a demo as well. But, you know, just kind of like a nice.
Oh yeah, okay, good. A good like half-inch cube, right?
Yeah, half-inch cube is a great way to put it. And again, one of those things where if you're running a little short on time, you can always take the extra step to chop them a little smaller so they cook a little faster. But turnips in general, they're pretty tender to start, so the cooking time, the boiling time is not too long at all.
So what I've done is I've halved my turnip right down the center, and then halved those halves again. So I've got kind of cutting like 2 layers, and that's kind of helping me to cube it up nicely.
Yep, and one real quick knife cutting skill thing is you always want to have flat surfaces with your vegetables. So instead of trying to like cut with a round turnip, you know, if you make one cut first and you have this flat side on your cutting board, it's a lot more stable and it's not going to rock on you. And then in terms of the size of pot you're looking for to boil these turnips and onions, you can go anything from, as long as it fits, like a medium to a large, it doesn't matter. You can have as much room as you want. You just want to make sure you have enough room so it's not filled all the way to the top.
Okay, so I've got, this is a 4-quart saucepan. Yep. I think that this in terms
That's the
of
perfect looking size. Yep.
what I've got here on my cutting board, that this is the right pan for me.
Yep, absolutely. And then we're going to fill the pot with our onions and turnips. And we're going to add just a little bit of salt, because you always want to add salt for the most part. Helps bring out the flavor. And then at that point, once you have some salt in your turnips and your onions and in your saucepan, you just want to fill up the pot so the water's just covering the turnips. If the more water you put in your pot, the more flavor you lose. So you don't want to over water your vegetables when boiling. Just enough to cover the turnips and onions.
Okay, so I'm just barely covering it, right?
Yep. And then what we're looking to do is we're just looking to get a medium, like a soft boil going on the stove. Another one of those things that if you're running short on time, throw it on a little bit higher heat. Be careful and make sure you watch it. But so long as you're going along nicely in the kitchen, you got plenty of time. Just go ahead and put it over medium heat. So once it's as hot as it's going to get, it's going to just be at that soft boil stage. And we're just going to let that go. It'll be about 15, 20 minutes. And we're just looking for the turnips to be nice and tender. So you can stick a fork all the way through a piece, but it doesn't also disintegrate when you do so.
Got it. Okay, so fork tender.
Yep.
Okay. All right, Logan, so our potatoes are in the oven. Our turnips and onions are doing their thing on the stove. Now I am super excited about this loaf of bread that is sitting in front of me. I'm a big fan of 9 bean. I will stand in that long line to get a croissant on Wednesday mornings. So what are we going to do to elevate our bread course this year?
When you have really delicious bread, obviously, you don't necessarily have to do a whole lot, but we also have these beautiful products from Cuisine. So what we want to do is show off a couple of Cuisine's products. I think if you go to an Italian restaurant or whatever, and a lot of those places are going to offer bread with some really good olive oil and balsamic, and it's deeply satisfying so long as it's of high quality. And that's really what we have here. And we had some fun picking out the right ones. So we have the Herbes de Provence olive oil. So you're going to get all those Italian herb flavors naturally. And then we have the 18-year-old balsamic vinegar, which is a real treat.
Yes.
The first step is just kind of selecting some sort of vessel that you want to just have for the olive oil and balsamic vinegar mixture. Something I like a little bit more shallow, because you can kind of see the olive oil and vinegar. And it's just better for dipping. And you have a more shallow vessel, then more people can kind of get in there. So we'll start with the olive oil. And similar to the salad dressing, I think a good ratio to start with is 2-to-1 olive oil to vinegar.
Okay.
So we'll just go ahead and just put a healthy amount. We're giving everybody 4 ounces. I would say maybe do 2 ounces to start. It's one of those things that you can have the olive oil and vinegar bottles on the table wherever you're eating. So you can always add more if it gets stopped up by all the bread.
Right. All right. So we've got extras. We've got backup. And then you said, so 2 parts oil and 1 part balsamic.
Yep. And the olive oil and vinegar, of course, are going to try to separate from each other. So it's going to kind of look cool. That's why it's fun to have a little bit wider of a dish available if you can. Now, again, we have the Italian herb flavor of the olive oil. So in terms of going a step beyond here, I think a little bit of salt would be a great call. So just sprinkle a little bit of salt on top of that mixture, and it'll dissolve in there, creating a little saltiness. Some fresh black pepper, I think, is fantastic for just a hint of spice. And this right here with the incredible 9 bean roast bread is a treat in and of itself. Now, you could, again, elevate from here, right? If you like a little bit of heat, you could do a little bit of chili pepper flakes, like red chili flakes. You could put some fresh herbs, even if you just wanted the visual. So You know, you can almost just put them in whole. So if you want to get fancy, just impress whoever you have who's ever going to be eating with you. You could throw some in there, and those aromas will take hold over time. So it's totally up to you. This is like the baseline. One of the things that I might recommend is you could wrap the bread in a little bit of foil and put it in the oven to warm it up just a little bit. Right before you're ready to eat it, just making sure, you know, put it at 250 so you're not burning or drying out the bread. That's critical. But if you did want to warm it up, that's an option. In terms of cutting it, I was thinking about this. You know, it's one of those things where like, well, do we want to show you how to cut bread? I think everybody knows how to cut bread. But, you know, the other potential cool thing to do, because the idea is that we're just going to be dipping this in this great little Cuisine mixture. You could also just do the act of breaking bread. You just break this thing in half and just get into it, so long as everybody has clean hands and everybody is COVID tested. You know, just get on in there, break it apart, and then you're just tearing a little bit off and just dunking it in there. I am all about playing with food, making food fun. So just, you know, get on in there and just tear a piece off, and making sure you get all of the components in there at once.
I love the idea of tearing this bread into pieces, because one of the main spirits of harvest, I would say the spirit of harvest, is the sense of community and togetherness that we have. And so even though we can't break bread together this year, 650 of us under that big tent at the Commons, we can still have this spirit of community by making the harvest meal at home and sharing it with the people who matter most to us. So love that you've put that spirit into the meal, Loghan. Thank you. All right, I'm gonna dig in. That looks absolutely gorgeous. My cameraman wants a bite too, so here you go, guy.
Oh yeah, really good.
That 18-year balsamic is so rich and sweet. It is. Thank you so much to Cuisine for providing the olive oil and vinegar for this meal. Absolutely delicious. Yeah,
this is a real treat all the way around. I mean, the quality of the olive oil, the quality of the vinegar, the quality of the bread. I mean, it's just all is a real harmony in your mouth. So that's it. I mean, the bread course is super simple. We have our turnips and potatoes in the oven. So as soon as those turnips are tender and the potatoes are nice and crispy, we'll come back and finish both of those.
All right. I'll see you when our root veg is ready. Thanks, Loghan. So Loghan, my turnips and onions have been on the stove for about like 10 or 15 minutes. I think that they're fork tender. That's what we're looking for, right?
Yeah, if you can stick a fork through and they kind of glide through the turnip without too much resistance, that'll be a good indication that you're ready to pull them off of the stove.
All right. And then am I draining them or?
Yep. So that's the next step, is to just over your sink, go ahead and use a strainer to drain the liquid. And then you also want to go ahead and, once they're in the colander strainer, just go ahead and run them, the cold water over it just a little bit, just to cool them down. Because when we go to blend them, we don't want them to be piping hot.
All right. So come over here.
Beautiful. Yeah, so go ahead and run the cold water over them, just kind of cool them down a little bit, and give them an ice bath, if you will, and you can go ahead and put them back in that pot, so that way they're not dripping all over the place as you move them to wherever your blender might be. Excellent. So I have mine in my pot here as well. So I have a blender, so I'm going to go ahead and take my blender here that I have and go ahead and dump the mixture right in.
All right, and I'm going to give it a try with my food processor, since I've already used that once during our cooking process here. Going to try to minimize the number of dishes I have to do. So I'm going to give that a try, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so a food processor can more than likely work. The better the food processor, the better the result. We want this to be as silky smooth as possible, and typically blenders are going to be a little bit better than the food processor. Also, we're going to be putting some garlic in there as well. So just in terms of making sure we're combining everything, food processor works, blender probably.
Blender better. Okay. Well, should I risk it?
That's up to you. We can always dump it from there into the blender if we need to.
All right, we'll try this first.
And then we do have a couple of things we need to prep for the what we're going to be putting with the turnips and onions.
Okay, so are we prepping before we put into the?
That's right. So we want to get the garlic out. So we're going to start with 2 cloves of garlic. So we just want to get the garlic peeled. However you like to get rid of the garlic skins. I like to take a knife and just press down, and the garlic, typically the skins will pop right off. But yeah, 2 cloves to start. And I love my garlic. So, you know, if you're confident in how much you love garlic and how much you don't need to worry about breathing on other people this evening, you know, it's you can go more. But it's also one of those things that try it. If you want some more spice and garlic, always add some more.
All right. I'm a big fan of garlic. I know that everybody else in the Owsley household is a big fan. So I'm going pretty enthusiastically with 2 large cloves of garlic.
There you go. Yeah, I'm on the same boat with the large ones. So we have our turnips and onions, and so far we've added garlic, and then we also want to take our 2 lemons that we have and slice those in half, and however you have to juice them. I have one of these kind of cranks, so I'm just going to be able to go right over the blender vessel and go ahead and add the full 2 lemons worth of juice. Again, the signature components of a good aioli is fatty, acidic, garlicky. So that's really what we're looking for, is to mimic those flavors.
Okay, so I have a feeling that since you're recommending a blender, but I'm working with a food processor here, I have a garlic press. So I'm going to help my food processor by doing a little bit of work for it. So I'm going to press
Absolutely, yep.
Okay.
That's a great call. If you have a good blender, don't worry about doing too much to the garlic. The blender will do all the work. If you're working with a blender that doesn't perform super well, or you're working with a food processor, go ahead and mash the garlic. That's a great call.
All right, and so the juice of 2 lemons going into my food processor.
Yes, absolutely.
This is already starting to smell so good. My house was filling with the aroma of onions on the stove. Now we've got my other favorite smell, garlic.
Yeah, this is what we're really looking for, is a real flavor bomb. You know, this is going to be just super delicious. It'll be nice and smooth, and just a great dipping for the potato wedges. So garlic, lemon, and then we're going to finish off with a little seasoning. So olive oil, salt, and a little black pepper. Be liberal with the olive oil. I say 2 to 3 tablespoons. Again, the fat content of an aioli is paramount. If you ever had it before, you know just how fatty it is. And we have, you know, I'm using Cuisine's olive oil once again, just because I always have it on hand. But whatever olive oil you might have lying around, you can sub out for a different oil if you don't happen to have additional olive oil. That's okay. And then once again, we want to make sure we're pretty heavy-handed on the salt.
I'd say start with around a teaspoon or so. I would eyeball these things.
But the salt is going to bring out the flavors of everything else we have going on. And then just a couple shakes of black pepper, just for a little hint of that spice. So in the blender or food processor, we have our turnips, we have our onions, we have garlic, we have lemon juice, olive oil, and salt and black pepper.
All right. Sounds like a great combination of flavors. Can't go wrong.
And then And then all we want to do is blend it or food process it. You know, the main thing here is the key to this is to run it for quite a while. So start on a low setting. You know, you don't want it to splash up or whatever immediately, but work your way up to a pretty high speed, especially if you're working with a blender. The more you can integrate and get that silky smooth texture, the more enjoyable it's going to be.
All right, so I'll see you back here when my aioli is super smooth.
There we go. Okay, cool. So I have my aioli here, all blended up. It's silky smooth. The texture, you know, it should be thick, but it's going to be pretty runny as well. The main thing that we're looking for is making sure that the onions and the turnips and the garlic and everything integrated really well, so it's nice and smooth. Because again, this is a dipping sauce, so it should be a little runnier than ketchup, you know, perhaps. So, you know, we're going to pour it into something that your guests can just be dipping those potato wedges in.
All right, yep. I'm pretty excited that my food processor plan totally worked. So if folks don't have a high-powered blender, or you want to cut down on the number of dishes that you have at the end of the evening, and you've already used a food processor, this is a totally legit way to go.
And this is the perfect time to taste. This is when you want to get into, does it hit the marks that you're looking for? Right now, I would say mine's a little bit on the acidic side. So what I would do is I'd revise it a little bit with a little bit more salt and a little bit more garlic. I love garlic. 2 cloves wasn't enough for me. So this is just one of those things where it's all about where you're at. This is a great base. I know the recipe is a great base. And then it's just like, how do I kind of want to work with this from here? Because again, I think some people are garlic adverse. Some people don't like acidic things. So this is the base, and just boost those flavors as you see fit.
Nice. I'm pretty happy with where mine is, especially texture-wise. It's super smooth. Where it is now is delicious, and I think it's going to be an excellent sauce to accompany our blue potatoes, which I just took mine out of the oven. How are yours doing?
Yeah, mine are out as well. And just a quick note on the acidity, a little extra olive oil and a little extra salt and reduce the amount of acidity. So if you find yourself thinking it's a little lemony, a little extra salt, a little extra olive oil, and it'll bring it right down for you. So just as a heads up. So yeah, the potatoes are out. You know, you should see this kind of nice, kind of crispy brown on some of these sides here. That's really what you want. You want to make sure that you have the browning of the potato wedges. That's a good sign. Obviously, you want to make sure they're cooked all the way through, but betting odds are on if they're nice and brown on the sides, they're cooked all the way through.
All right.
And then this is just a matter of how you want to serve it. You know, you could throw all the potatoes in a big bowl. You could have a little bowl for your aioli, and everyone's just dipping. You can individually plate it on a little plate, and make sure everybody gets the correct portion, so nobody's going too hard on the potato wedges and stealing all the thunder and glory from everybody else.
Right. Well, in the spirit of harvest, I think I'm going to serve my meal family style, which is what we do every year at Harvest at the Commons under the big tent. We have these big, long community-style tables where folks are seated together. That's one of my favorite parts of Harvest, is that you could be seated with your family, your friends, your coworkers, or if it's just you and you've decided to attend Harvest alone, you will make friends immediately with the folks who are sitting at your table. So in that spirit, I'm going to serve my meal family style all together, and then people can dig in and serve themselves at the table.
Yeah, and also one other quick note on the aioli. It's also one of these things that once it's pureed, you could add like some sriracha to it. You could add some ketchup to it. You could add mustard to it. I mean, this is, again, one of those things where we're creating these great, like, baseline delicious things that you can always boost to your, like, desires and things that you like. So that's one of my favorite things to do, is add a little bit of sriracha, because I love spicy. So
yeah, all right. I think I might take that advice. So are we ready to plate this up? Are you at that point too?
Yeah, I already kind of jumped ahead of you, so I'll show this one to the second camera we have going on. But if you happen to have a darker vessel for the aioli, so you can, the white pops in the dish, that's cool. It's a nice way to demonstrate kind of the beautiful creamy color of the aioli.
All right, so I am about to dig in. I am super excited about these beautiful blue purplish potatoes and dipping it in our aioli. That's delicious.
Absolutely, great combo. Again, you know, we all are used to potato wedges. This is just creating a unique sauce using these fall harvest crops. So blue potatoes with a turnip aioli sauce. I think, happy to hear your feedback. Seems like a pretty simple execution overall.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've only created a few dishes over here, so my end of the night cleanup is going to be super simple. All right, Logan, thank you so much for guiding us through this part of the harvest meal. Again, if folks want to join us for this year's harvest at home, you are welcome to pre-order your farm box at groundworkcenter.org/harvest. All of the recipes, as well as the shopping list, are available on that website, so that if you are not local to Traverse City and you can't pick up a farm box, we've got you hooked up. You can do this all from wherever you are. So big thanks to our sponsor, Harvest Solar. Thank you so much for coming in again and sponsoring Harvest. I also want to thank our certified local food sponsors, Taste the Local Difference, MI Farm Co-op, Planted Cuisine, Do the 22, Oriana Community Co-op. Also want to give a shout out to Fustini's and Grocery Starter Chocolate. And thank you to all of our sponsors who are supporting Groundwork in this strange pandemic world. We're really excited about this year's event and think it's going to be a lot of fun. Thanks a lot for all your guidance and your help, Logan. Really looking forward to making the entree in our next video.
Yep, we have one more to go, and this is really fun. And once again, a reminder that this should always be fun. And if there's ever any issues, you can reach out to myself, yourself. Like, we're available to help guide you through this process.
Great point, Logan. I do just want to let people know that on October 10th, Hans and I will be hosting Harvest at Home from home. We're going to be live streaming from Hans's house. Logan's going to be cooking up the dinner and hosting a really awesome cooking show right before we get into our live stream event. So make sure that you register for the event at groundworkcenter.org/harvest. Make sure you register so that you get that live stream link and you can tune in, watch Logan make the meal, watch Hans and I do the live stream show, and then we've got awesome music by Joshua Davis. Really super stoked for the live stream. So, all right, folks, we'll see you in the next video.